The Delta Queen was a floating palace, all white paint and gleaming brass, a testament to a bygone era of elegance and grandeur. She paddled her way through the heart of the Louisiana bayou, her powerful engines a low hum against the stillness of the day. The air was thick with the smell of magnolia and the sound of cicadas, a symphony of the South. Passengers, their faces flushed with the sun and the excitement of the journey, lined the railings, captivated by the primeval beauty of the swamp. Children, their laughter echoing across the water, chased each other across the decks, their parents snapping pictures of the moss-draped cypress trees that lined the banks. It was an idyllic scene, a perfect snapshot of a lazy summer day in the South, a day that promised nothing but relaxation and the gentle rhythm of the river. No one could have predicted the horror that was about to unfold.
The old captain, a man weathered by years of sun and river water, stood at the helm, his eyes scanning the water ahead. He'd navigated these waters for over 50 years, knew every twist and turn, every sandbar and snag. But today a prickle of unease ran down his spine, a feeling he couldn't shake off. The sun, usually his constant companion, seemed dimmer, veiled by an unseen force. The air, normally alive with the sounds of the swamp, was strangely silent. Even the cicadas had fallen quiet. The swamp, he realized, was holding its breath.
The first sign of trouble came as a ripple in the water, a disturbance too large to be a fish, too sudden to be a log. The captain, his gut twisting with dread, watched as the ripple grew into a wave, a silent swell that raced towards the boat. His hand instinctively went to the ship's horn, the brass cold against his palm. He hesitated, not wanting to alarm the passengers prematurely, but the unease that had been simmering in his stomach now flared into full-blown alarm. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. He had to act, and act fast.
He opened his mouth to shout a warning, but before he could utter a word, the water beside the boat erupted in a frenzy of snapping jaws and thrashing tails. Two monstrous alligators, their scales glinting like armor in the afternoon sun, launched themselves onto the lower deck. Their roars, guttural bellows of primal rage, shattered the peaceful silence, replacing it with the raw sound of terror. Pandemonium erupted. Passengers screamed, scrambling for safety as the alligators, their eyes glowing with a cold reptilian hunger, rampaged across the deck. The idyllic scene of moments ago was transformed into a nightmare of blood and screams. The Delta Queen, once a symbol of elegance and leisure, was now a battleground.
One of the creatures, its massive head the size of a small car, lunged towards a group of tourists who had been admiring the scenery. They scattered, their screams echoing through the still air as the alligator slammed into the railing, its jaws snapping shut just inches from a woman's face. Her sunglasses clattered to the deck, the plastic snapping under the force of the impact. The other alligator, no less terrifying in size and ferocity, headed towards the center of the boat, its tail whipping back and forth, smashing tables and chairs like they were made of twigs. Children clung to their mothers, their eyes wide with terror, their cries lost in the cacophony of screams and roars.
The captain, his face ashen but his resolve hardening with each passing second, grabbed the ship's horn and pulled. The deep, resonant blast echoed across the water, a desperate cry for help that he prayed would reach someone, anyone, in time. He knew they were sitting ducks out here, easy prey for the monstrous reptiles that ruled this stretch of the bayou, but he was damned if he was going down without a fight.
Chaos reigned on the decks of the Delta Queen. Passengers, their faces etched with terror, stumbled over each other in a desperate attempt to escape the jaws of the alligators. Some dove for cover behind overturned tables and chairs, the flimsy protection offering little comfort against the raw power of the creatures. Others, their minds paralyzed by fear, simply froze, their eyes wide with terror as they watched the carnage unfold. A young boy, separated from his parents in the chaos, stumbled and fell near the railing. The larger of the two alligators, its bloodlust aroused by the scent of fear and the taste of its first victim, turned its cold reptilian gaze towards the child.
The boy's scream, high and piercing, cut through the cacophony of the attack, sending a chill down the spines of everyone within earshot. His small hands reached out for his mother, his voice a choked whisper of her name. But his parents were nowhere to be seen, swallowed up by the panicked crowd.
The alligator, its jaws dripping with saliva, edged closer, its tail thrashing back and forth, anticipation radiating from its every move. The boy closed his eyes, bracing for the end. Suddenly, a figure darted out from the crowd, a blur of movement against the backdrop of terror. It was the boy's mother, her face pale but her eyes blazing with a fierce determination. She had fought her way through the panicked mob, her only thought to reach her son.
Michael,
she screamed, her voice raw with fear and adrenaline. The alligator, momentarily distracted by her sudden appearance, turned its head towards her, its eyes narrowing. But the woman didn't hesitate. She scooped up a fallen chair, its wooden frame splintered and broken, and charged towards the creature, her maternal instincts overriding any fear she might have felt.
Get away from my son!
She roared, her voice echoing across the deck, a primal scream of defiance against the monster that threatened her child. The alligator, surprised by her audacity, hesitated for a moment, its reptilian brain struggling to process this unexpected turn of events. That moment of hesitation was all she needed. The woman, fueled by a mother's love and fury, slammed the chair into the side of the alligator's head. The blow, though insignificant against the creature's massive bulk, was enough to startle it, to break its focus. The alligator hissed, a sound filled with anger and frustration, and turned its attention from the boy to the woman who dared to challenge it. The other alligator, sensing a shift in the dynamic, abandoned its rampage and lumbered towards the commotion, its massive jaws snapping shut with bone-crushing force. The deck of the Delta Queen, once a place of leisure and laughter, was now a gladiatorial arena, the air thick with the stench of fear and the primal energy of a fight for survival. The passengers, momentarily forgetting their own terror, watched in stunned silence as the woman, armed with nothing but her courage and a broken chair, faced down not one, but two of the swamp's deadliest predators. The captain, his heart pounding in his chest, knew he had to do something, anything to help. But what could he do against such monstrous creatures? An idea, reckless and desperate, formed in the captain's mind. He knew the risks, knew the odds of success were slim to none. But he also knew that doing nothing meant certain death for the woman, for her son, for everyone on board the Delta Queen.
Get everyone to the bow, now, and grab anything you can. We need to weigh down the front of the boat.
The passengers, jolted into action by the urgency in his voice, scrambled to obey. They gathered at the bow, their faces pale but their eyes filled with a glimmer of hope. Anything was better than waiting to be devoured by the monstrous reptiles that stalked the decks. Men and women, united by a common threat and a shared will to survive, worked together, piling luggage, furniture, anything they could get their hands on, onto the bow of the boat. The Delta Queen, responding to the sudden shift in weight, began to tilt precariously, her bow dipping lower in the water. The alligators, confused by the sudden movement and the shifting angle of the deck, paused in their advance. They hissed and roared, their bodies instinctively rebelling against this unexpected turn of events. They were apex predators used to dominating their environment, not being outsmarted by their prey.
Seeing his opportunity, the captain seized the moment. He raced to the engine room, his heart pounding in his chest, his lungs burning with exertion. He slammed the throttle forward, pushing the Delta Queen's engines to their limit.
The paddle wheel churned the water into a frothy white mess, the boat shuddering and groaning in protest. With a final, desperate surge of power, the bow of the Delta Queen dipped below the surface of the water, creating a makeshift ramp. The alligators, caught off guard, lost their footing and slid down the slick, wet deck, their roars of frustration echoing across the swamp as they plunged back into the murky depths.
The passengers, clinging to the railing for dear life, erupted in cheers, their relief palpable. They had escaped the jaws of death, thanks to the quick thinking of their captain and their own desperate will to survive.
The Delta Queen, her once pristine white paint now marred with scratches and dents, limped to the nearest town, a small, sleepy community on the edge of the bayou. As the boat pulled up to the dock, a collective gasp went up from the townsfolk who had gathered to witness the arrival of the battered vessel.
News of the alligator attack had spread like wildfire, carried on the wind and the whispers of the swamp. People stared in awe and horror at the claw marks that scarred the boat's once pristine exterior, a testament to the ferocity of the attack.
The passengers, shaken but alive, disembarked, their legs wobbly beneath them, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and lingering terror. They embraced loved ones, tears streaming down their faces, grateful to be back on solid ground, surrounded by the familiar sights and sounds of civilization.
The young boy, reunited with his mother, clung to her leg, his eyes wide and unblinking. The memory of the alligator's gaping jaws forever seared into his young mind.
His mother, her face pale but her eyes shining with unshed tears, held him tight, whispering soothing words into his hair.
The attack on the Delta Queen became the stuff of legend, a cautionary tale whispered around campfires and recounted in hushed tones in the dim light of saloons. It was a reminder of the raw, untamed power of the swamp, a force that even the most modern of conveniences could not entirely hold at bay. Some passengers, forever marked by the experience, refused to ever set foot on a boat again, their fear of the water and its denizens too deeply ingrained. Others, however, found a strange sense of exhilaration in their survival, a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life and the preciousness of each passing moment. The Delta Queen, her wounds patched but her spirit unbroken, continued to ply the waters of the Louisiana Bayou, a floating testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring allure of the South. The scars she bore were not marks of defeat, but badges of honor, a reminder of the days she stared death in the face and emerged victorious. The story of the alligator attack on the Delta Queen became a part of the boat's own lore, woven into the fabric of her being. It was whispered among the crew, passed down from one generation to the next, a tale told to impress greenhorns and remind seasoned sailors of the unpredictable nature of the river. Tourists, drawn to the legend, flocked to book passage on the Delta Queen, eager to experience the thrill of riding the same decks where terror had once reigned. They sat on the upper deck, sipping mint juleps and listening to jazz music, their eyes scanning the murky water, half expecting to see the telltale ripple that heralded the arrival of the swamp's most fearsome predator. But the alligators never returned, their encounter with the Delta Queen serving as a stark reminder of the resilience and ingenuity of their prey. The river, however, held its secrets close, and the legend of the Delta Queen, a tale of terror and triumph, lived on, a reminder that even in the heart of civilization, the wildness of nature was never far away.